Hey everybody, this is Perch. A comic book union. Could it happen? Is it possible? Well, the answer has been no for a long period of time. But to be fair, we've really been talking about from the standpoint of the creators, from the artists and from the writers and the people who are tagged as independent contractors, freelancers. They've come up against anti-cartel laws, basically other systems that corporations and others have lobbied hard over the decades to ensure that a union couldn't really exist. Now, backing up just a second here, your opinion on union. And by the way, whenever you talk about this topic, people get really intense about it. They're like, this is what a union is. I know what a union is. They're like, people have very hardened opinions on it. So I'm speaking a little generically because I do not want to make an hour video about a union, but I will point out that even if you're not formally organized as a union, there certainly is behaviors that people can take inside a company that where they work together, where they, if you go to Glassdoor, there's a lot of sharing of salaries and other things. I mean, people find ways to do some of what a union brings you. What they don't get is a collective bargaining power and the machinations of a union, the various other pieces, which, in fairness, has a lot of detractors as much as people who like it. Unfortunately, unions, like everything else, is often split along political lines, and it's a whole thing. So I do not want to create a debate about unions, but there is news today that there is a union coming to comics, sort of. So what's basically happened is Image Comics staffers, and here is where I don't know for sure, but I would be willing to bet Eric Stevenson and some of the Image leadership is in the loop to some extent with this. I don't think this is coming as a surprise from the workers up. I would imagine Image Comics wanting to be a little different and everything else. If not encouraged this, at least was aware and kind of more or less tagging along with it. So they've announced Comic Book Workers United. So it's made up of staffers working at Image Comics, voted in by a supermajority. So what are staffers? People on the editorial team, people in distribution, people who have a full-time job, not the creators, not writers, artists, inkers, colorists, etc. These are staffer editors, people at, and even in Image, there's not really as much editors, but I mean, it's workers, it's full-time employees. And this initial statement came out, was signed by Ryan Brewer, Leanna Conter, Marla Ezek, Drew Fitzgerald, Melissa Gifford, Chloe Ramos, Trisha Ramos, John Shaflin, and Erica Schnatz. And there's a statement up online, a letter of support, of solidarity. And it is basically says the workers of Image Comics proud to stand together as a comic book workers united, affiliated with the Communication Workers of America. This is basically the union umbrella, for lack of a better word, that's going to help them organize and provide the materials. If you want to organize or affiliate as a union, there's a couple of groups that can do that. Communication Workers of America is one of them. Usually for the entertainment industry, I don't want to say go-to, but that's one of the key ones. Despite years of union busting and anti-organization sentiments in the American workforce, we know that Image has at its heart desire to be first when it comes to doing the right thing for comic workers. This is why I do believe a lot of Image management probably is aware of this. That's why we'll know we'll win, because our success is the company's success. Well, I mean, that's always the goal, but we'll see. Our success is the creator's success. Our success is the reader's success. I mean, okay, sounds great. We hope you'll stand with us as we seek voluntary recognition. Complete the short form below. And then there's this Comic Book Workers United out of Portland that is basically saying they're forming this labor union as part of Image. So first off, we'll get to the goals of what they're stating as part of the union, which are interesting. But is this likely? The big question people are going to have is this going to get picked up other places? So at DC and Marvel, no. The odds that are as close to zero as it could possibly get. Disney has long pushed out unions and have been very anti-union. DC, and by nature of Warner Media and now Discovery or AT&T, they wouldn't be excited to have a creative endeavor, have a union. A little bit more possibility there, I suppose, but Disney is an absolute no. Some of the smaller companies, boom, others, I mean, maybe. The trick is going to be to say, okay, so if there's a union, which means dues and fees and other things, is it actually providing value? Is it actually going to provide some benefit to people who are taking part in it? Time will tell. If it's just going to be a loose organization, great. But the problem with comics is it's relatively small. So a lot of the collective bargaining that goes on, I mean, look at it this way. Let's say the workers at Image disagree with a management opinion. They come together, they fight. Does having a union help that bargaining power or not? I would argue at this size, probably not for the full-time employees. I would think that they have as much control now as they would in a union. I mean, the argument with a union is if there's something they don't like, they could strike, they could object in a more meaningful way. But I mean, because the company is so small, I think they pretty much could do that now anyway. A lot of the Image staffers are already tightly connected, so that they could certainly stage walkouts and other things, as we've seen it from other industries. Now, regardless of a union. So I don't know if this does much. Now, if it starts to spread to Valiant and Boom and a bunch of other companies, then maybe it starts to get a little bit more significant. But it's hard for me at this exact moment to think about how this significantly helps, even if you're pro-union. And please, if you're coming into the comments, you're like, this is the value of a union. I get it for like the Steelworkers Association, for automotive employees, for telecommunications, for big industries. I understand. I still think there's big pros and cons in terms of a union. I think the union had a lot of value, 100 years ago and more but in today's time, I don't know that it has the same value it did. But again, that's up to you. It's your call. It's your decision to join a union or not. My point here is in comics, it's a little bit more sketchy about what it actually would do to help. And so when we get into the goals of the group, that's where it feels a little bit more, I don't know, funny to me, I guess is the best way to put it. So goal number 1, to foster a more competitive industry as a whole through salary and workload transparency for all existing and proposed titles. So this is basically more transparency around money. This is one thing a lot of companies are fighting with right now, is that historically, your salary is meant to be kept secret, kept quiet. A lot of companies ask you to do that. In some states, that's not legal. Basically, companies can't ask you to do that, but people talk anyway. Again, sites like Glassdoor are pretty much transparent at this point. Improve staff morale through staff and management reviews to assess performance. Man, I would pay money to see Eric Larson do a staff review. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. Goal number 2, creation of more transparent company culture through monthly all-hands meetings so all staff can better understand current and future possibilities. I'm a bit surprised that hasn't happened, or that isn't happening now. You're telling me Image doesn't do monthly all-hand meetings? I mean, that would be kind of weird if they didn't, but okay. Increase knowledge retention through the implementation of detailed record keeping and procedure documentation for all tasks deemed essential for any role. That sounds great. They're going to need to hire some people, which, by the way, is kind of the issue with this entire statement, is it's going to require cash in order to hire more people. As you get into this, it's like, we want more of this and this and this. Okay, it's going to require more people to do it. Do you have the cash to actually hire those people? I mean, or does this thing, like mini unions that put these kinds of goals out, you find out in 6 months that everybody is just working a lot harder because they've given themselves more to do? Oh no. Anyway, improve career mobility for all staff through stricter adherence to the company's stated intent to offer open positions to qualified existing employees prior to opening them up to the public. It's kind of okay, that one's often in there. Here's where the last 4 get a little bit more interesting. The continuation of remote work for any employee who requests it, and the creation of a detailed policy outlining how the company provides reasonable accommodation supplies for remote employees. Talking about the pandemic. A lot of companies are doing this right now. However, the idea of how to grapple with remote work at the end of the day creates, there's cost and there's accountability. So companies have to pay a little bit more to provide material. And you can argue if they're expecting somebody to work from home, they should do that. But do companies have that money? Good question. And in terms of the accountability, a lot of employees are cheating this system. I don't know about a lot, but some employees are cheating this system using remote work to screw around. If they're doing that, are there clear termination policies? Is the union going to be involved in that? Okay. Number 6, better overall product through the immediate addition of staff, particularly in production and marketing departments. Yeah, I agree. You do. That would be great. Do you have the money to do it? Again, our creators, retailers, readers expect white glove attention for all the books we publish, books which go to press with fewer errors, fewer delays, more robust marketing presence. Again, sounds great. Agreed. Do you have the cash to hire those people at the end of the day? The next two are interesting. A long-term, actionable plan to address the overall lack of diversity in both general staff and management. The authors, artists, readers who bring comics to life have never been homogeneous, and the stories we publish can only be improved by staffing organization in a way that more accurately reflects the demographics of our creators' readership and the nation as a whole. That's interesting because, unfortunately, I think if you look at Image Comics and the staff there, I would wager if you do a pure demographic look, I would guess that I don't guess, actually. I know from people inside, the Image staff is more diverse in terms of demographics than the nation as a whole. So this is an interesting statement that, if it's applied to the letter, is going to probably hire more white dudes. Just saying. Anyway, but okay. I mean, I don't know. All right. The last one, renewed commitment to company values through the addition of a collective voting option to immediately cancel publication of any title whose creators have been found to be engaged in abuse, sexual assault, racism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, ableism, etc., until such time as said creators have engaged in meaningful reparations toward the affected persons. That one is terrifying to me. Not because I want books out there by creeps, of course not, but a collective voting option to immediately cancel publication. That is that's an interesting thing to go with. Having that as a union byline is a big deal, because you're basically saying, if these events come up, we're going to toss it to a mass vote of the staff. Which is going to create a lot. I mean, it basically empowers a lot of unfounded accusations to get tossed around on social media. If you don't like somebody, you throw a bunch of accusations around with no proof. It immediately grinds the project to a halt. People vote on it, and you get a permanent kind of record material against a book with the claim of now reparations have been made prior to any kind of investigation. It says to be found, but to be found in today's day means somebody posts a tweet. So that one's got a hell of a backlash to it coming, and this feels like lawsuit central if this is something that you're going to. But anyway, there you go. Do you think comics needs a union? People have asked for it. I don't think this is it in terms of what it actually helps. Again, I'm struggling with it's a tiny industry with not a huge amount of people, and does this actually help? And then more importantly, where does the money come from? Several of these initiatives require the company to be making more money. So are we going to raise comic prices? Are we going to pay people less? Are we going to take more of a chunk from what the creators can make out of Image? I mean, how do you expect to fund this becomes the question for me. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.